Welcome to Hungry for Travel. I'm Carol Yelverton. It's green, it's lush, and sometimes just downright mysterious. Today we're exploring the Isle and the food of Ireland. Those festivals are fantastic. They say there's a festival for everything in Ireland. I think that's true. Ireland is also in the midst of an incredible food renaissance right now. It's a mixture of inspired fine dining and a deep commitment to farm-to-table cooking. Noel McNeil is one of the top chefs in Ireland. He comes from a place called Fermanagh, and it's there that he's going to take us on a food journey, showing us the farm-to-table movement and how it inspires fine dining, all locally sourced.
Fermanagh is the gateway to the northwest of Ireland. When the rain happens, obviously it's just like velvet drops, but it nourishes such a green, beautiful landscape. Fermanagh is a hidden gem. It just hasn't been discovered yet. I've always wanted to be a chef. My ethos very much is about taking the best of local produce, cooking it as simply as possible and presenting it to the guest. Recently, I had the privilege of preparing many special menus for all the world leaders as Fermanagh was host to the G8 Summit. And what a joy to be serving them the best of local produce. Pat O'Doherty's black bacon is a real labour of love and devotion. It's great when your ingredients not only taste fantastic, but have a story to tell.
Beautiful, beautiful food and such inspired cooking. It's really fun, and it's great to think about the fact that we can do that kind of cooking ourselves. We also know there's always going to be corned beef and cabbage and all the Irish favorites that we love, but we can also look at Irish cooking in terms of a really fresh approach to food, to using vegetables, and to creating dishes that have just brilliant bursts of flavor. So I'm going to take an Irish stew, which is traditionally a lamb stew, and I'm going to lighten it up with a lot of vegetables, and I'm going to use pork shoulder instead of lamb because it's going to be lighter and work with the vegetables really, really well. So what I did beforehand is I sauteed bacon in this pan. I took the bacon out, crumbled it. I'm going to save it for the topping. And then I took most of the bacon fat out because that's really going to be too heavy and it's going to interfere with the flavors of the fresh food, fresh vegetables that we want to use. Then I dredged some pork shoulder pieces in flour and salt, and now I just add it in to my pan. This is how we're going to get our stew really going here. So we've got a lot of pork, about 2 pounds of pork. And to that, and I have more in here, but I'm just going to keep moving so I can show you guys what else I have. I've got a mix of vegetables here, and it's a really wonderful mix. I have onion, I have celery, carrots, potatoes, and you know what? I've even got parsnips in here. I just want to show you, parsnips are like a beautiful vegetable. They look kind of like, dropped them, look kind of like a carrot. But they're not, and they have kind of this anise flavor to them. They are so perfect in stew, and so it's just, you know, just a great, great, great addition. I've also got a lot of celery in here, and these are all foods that are very much part of Ireland. They're part of the cooking. They're, you know, the vegetables that you'd find there. I'm also adding something, again, you may not know grows in Ireland, but mushrooms are very prevalent there. And the mushrooms I put into this Irish pork in cider stew that I'm going to make are really going to balance with the pork. They're going to balance with the cider that I'm going to put in. And they're just going to create a really, really nice, beautiful smell, aroma, and taste all together. So I put in some cider. I'm not going to put too much cider in. And then I'm also going to take vegetable broth. Again, I want to highlight the vegetables rather than the meat. So I'm going to just pour that in. Basically, I'm going to fill it to the top. And then I'm going to let that cook down for a while. I'm also going to add some garlic, though. I can't forget the garlic. So I've got about, I'd say a teaspoon or so of garlic that I'm going to put in here, minced garlic. So that's in there. So that's all going to start to cook together in a really, really great way. And I cook it down for about an hour and a half, until it's soft, the meat is tender. I'm going to add some caraway seed, too. I love caraway seed. And so I add that in about half a teaspoon. And I also like to put thyme in this, and thyme is one of those great herbs that you can just kind of just pull it right off the stem and get it right in there. You just don't want the stem, but to have the pieces. So I've got all those ingredients going. I've also got some salt and pepper I'm going to add in here. Salt is over here. So we'll add that all in together, and then we're going to let that cook and just really come together in a lovely way, and it's going to taste fantastic. So when I'm ready to serve it, what I do is I just put it in a dish, and I have garnished it. It's got the bacon, you can see the peas are here, and I've put some chopped basil on top because it just gives it a really nice color and look and taste. And I love to serve Harvest coarse ground mustard. So it's even coarser grind than you normally find. It's kind of a new product. It's a perfect condiment with this. It just goes with it so well. So when I taste it, which I'm excited to do, it's so good. It's got the cidery taste. The pork is so tender and soft, and the vegetables are wonderful. They've all kind of cooked together in this nice way. Everything's melded together. It's much lighter. It's not as meat heavy. It's a lot more vegetable heavy. And wow, it's fantastic. When I did this little test recipe at home, I'm going to tell you my husband had 2 bowls. So I'm feeling like we have a hit on our hands here. Well, as you can imagine, food and cooking are prevalent all over Ireland, and people are going on food tours and cooking tours like you wouldn't believe. There's a number of food trails that you can find in different cities around Ireland. Here's a look at what happens on the Dublin Food Trail.
Guys, welcome to the Irish Food Trail in Dublin City. Glad you could all join us. We're going to show you some traditional Irish food to some modern food, and you're going to get to meet some chefs and some owners. So it's a real nice experience. But I'd love to start the tour out, especially here in this beautiful backdrop, and just tell you a little bit about how Dublin came to be. In fact, you're standing on one of the oldest parts of Dublin. It was always a multicultural city. So we had Vikings, Normans, and you'll see that through the food as well. You might taste some seafood to Irish stews, and you'll definitely have some craft beer and Irish beer involved as well. So come and join us on the Irish Food Trail.
This food trail kicked off with a short walk to the Temple Bar district.
So guys, welcome to our first stop, Gallaher's Boxy House. They call this welcome to the home of the humble spud. They do things with potatoes in here, dishes that you wouldn't think are potatoes. We'll meet Dave Power, the head chef, and we'll get to taste some Boxy as well. So come on in and say hello.
So what you've got here are Boxty dumplings and a cashew blue cheese sauce. This is the Boxty loaf. It's got St. Tola's goat's cheese in it and some sun-dried tomatoes. And here we got the Boxty fries. which are boxty pancakes cut into thin strips and fried.
Chef Gallaher demonstrated the art of making boxty, a simple combination of grated and mashed potatoes, flour and milk, which is then fried, as well as the proper method of opening an oyster.
So we just need to run our knife under there. There's a very little tiny muscle that connects it to the shell. And that's our oyster done, okay?
Our first stop finished off with some Irish caviar and a shot of locally produced vodka.
Got our own little word for cheers, which is sláinte. So if you have your vodka there, we'll do a bit of sláinte. Sláinte.
On to the next stop, across the historic Halfpenny Bridge and the River Liffey to the winding stair and the woolen mills.
So what we're going to do first is we're extremely famous for our chowder. So I thought we'd have a little bowl of that and then some platters of Irish charcuterie and Irish smoked fish, because both of those are kind of resurgent industries in Ireland.
The offerings were paired with a variety of Irish craft ciders and beers.
I'm sommelier, but we're also trained, of course, in the arts of cider, beer, and spirits and things like that. This is a really exciting time for Ireland because it's a revolution. It's literally what it is. Cider, beer, and whiskies now have just absolutely exploded.
The tour ended with a whiskey tasting, a selection of Irish cheeses, and platters of homemade desserts.
That looks really, really good. You know, if you can't make it to Ireland, we do have some Irish food that we can get locally that can help us to make some beautifully Irish-inspired dishes. One of them is dairy. Dairy is so important in Ireland. You know, the rain, the mist, the whole climate there, the soil creates those beautiful green rolling pastures that we see in pictures. And of course, the dairy cows are munching on that. And the milk that they're producing is sweet and rich and creamier. It's just really, really special. And so we end up with things like Irish butter that are phenomenal, and they add such a different and lovely and intense flavor to the food, but intense in gentle, kind of a creamy dairy way. They're so wonderful. And then you can find Dubliner cheese as well. And I love this Dubliner cheddar cheese. It's, again, very rich. It feels really kind of peaceful and flavorful and round. I love it just sliced with crackers, and to cook with, it's amazing. Right now I have Celtic cheese, which is a type of Dubliner Cheddar, and it's really, really good for cooking, so I'm going to use that in our recipe that we're going to do in just a second. But first I want to talk about Celtic sea salt, because it's very different from any other sea salt that you'd find. It's gray, which looks really different, so when you first look at it, you're like, okay. But taste it, and it's like it melts in your mouth. It's so briny and delicious. It's really, really amazing. What happens is that the sea salt that's produced in Ireland, Celtic sea salt, stays in salt water longer, so more minerals form in it, so it's got a more briny flavor. So you use it differently, you season differently with it, but the flavor it gives is just unbelievable, and I love, love, love to cook with it. So I'm going to make a dish today that is going to incorporate all these elements, and of course it's Ireland, and we love potatoes, and Irish potatoes in all kinds of forms are some of our favorites. So today I've got a recipe that's going to incorporate all these ingredients all together. So I have butter in a pan. Now I'm using about 1/3 of a cup of butter. I know some of you would like to use maybe 1/2 cup of butter or a stick of butter, just the whole thing. Go ahead. If you want to do that, that's fine. I just am looking for a lighter approach. So I've got sunflower oil, which I really love to cook with. It's light. It does just great, great work in terms of browning the potatoes. And it just adds like a nice little flavor. It doesn't get in the way of this dish at all. So I have gotten some really nice looking red potatoes, as you can see here. And what I've done with these potatoes is I've diced them, or washed them, diced them, and then I put them on towels to dry. Because one thing that's really important in terms of cooking potatoes is that they're dry. You don't want them really wet, or you're kind of going to be combating all the moisture in there. So I've got my pan going with the oil and the butter. I put these in, and we're going to let them cook until they are brown on one side. And don't overload the pan too, because then what happens is the browning won't take place. So be really careful about that. So I'm gonna let these go for, you know, maybe 8 minutes on maybe a medium heat, maybe medium high, depending on the burner. I think I'll add a little Celtic sea salt because it's delicious. So I'm gonna throw some of that in there. And I've got really, really good garlic that I'm gonna put in again. And I wanted to show you, I found this beautiful garlic in the market, and you can see it's purple. It's a different color. It's not the white garlic that you usually would get. What's important about this is that it's ripe. When you see this kind of purple bulb, you know that you've got some really ripe garlic, and it's gonna have a lot of flavor. So when you see the purple garlic in the pile, scoop them up, because that's the kind you want. So I know we've got really, really good garlic going in here. So after the potatoes have browned, and then I've kind of tossed them, and everything's browning on all sides, and I think we're almost done, then I'm gonna put in actually 2 cloves of garlic. I know it sounds like a lot, but it just makes this dish so delicious that it's unbelievable. So I put that in, and I let that just cook around for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to do something that the Irish love to do, and that's add chives to potatoes. So I've got a lot of chives here. We usually think about chives as kind of like a little garnish. Well, I'm going to put a 1/2 cup in, so that's a lot. Now, it cooks and infuses into the potatoes in a way that you really don't find it overwhelming at all. But when you think about how much you're adding, it really is a lot. So then I let that cook down, and when that looks like it's all done and all set, then I'm going to add some of this beautiful cheese to the top. What I like to do is to take panko breadcrumbs, because they help to kind of just absorb a lot of the things that are going on in the pan and kind of give it a nice kind of interesting sparkle. And then when I put the cheese on top, it melts and it's really just gorgeous. And then I just let, it's probably about a cup of cheese, and I let that just kind of melt in and cook. And then when I'm done, I have a finished product here I can show you. I've added a little chopped parsley, and I put in more cheese on the top because the dish is hot. This is going to melt in, and it kind of gives just another layer of cheese, which, why not? It's cheese, and we love it. It's delicious. And so then I just let that all sit in together there, and, you know, people love this. They are going to eat this up. It's totally, totally delicious. I've made a small portion. If you have a crowd, you're probably going to want to use a bigger pan. So it's awesome. So I hope you enjoy it. Now, I just want to tell you, too, about Northern Ireland. In Belfast, there's a long history of making beautiful chocolate and, of course, whiskey. And these are old traditions that have really become new again at the hands of some very, very talented food and beverage crafters.
This is the new Belfast. It's a fun place. It's an exciting place. There's lots going on. Couture is a gourmet artisan chocolate shop, or chocolate boutique, to give it its full title. Well, funny, my inspiration actually came from New York, and it was while I was in New York that I came across fine chocolate through Michelle Cluzel's store in Manhattan. Once I tasted the fine, fresh chocolate, it's just a totally different experience, and I became fascinated with it, both as a product, but also the industry of premium chocolate. Like, our hot chocolate would be really popular, our brownies would be incredibly popular. And then I love trying to mix whiskey and chocolate, I'll be honest. So anything with whiskey and chocolate, I'm constantly trying to come up with new ways to work those two together. Everything we do is gluten-free. And then also, what we've done with all of our chocolates is we've really cut out the refined sugars, so they're very, very low in sugar. I think Couture is part of the new Belfast, and that's an exciting place to be.
The new Belfast is a wonderful place to explore, with world-class shopping, culture, food, and local specialties.
The uniqueness of this shop is that we'll only sell one product. That product is Irish whiskey, which was, in our humble opinion, the best in the world. We have approximately over 600. 400 are very rare ones which we'll never sell because we're like a museum. Approximately 160 are for sale. Whisky has taken a revival, and we're introducing new whiskies to the market. We're going to have a series of 13, and the very first whisky in that series is called Reconciliation. And never has a time now in the north where Reconciliation is more popular. It's an old Bushmills whisky that we'll be introducing, and it's two people shaking hands, a time to have the courage to accept the friend at hand, to put aside our differences, to look the guy in the eye and shake his hand.
Reconciliation, what a wonderful way to end our show. Thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate your time. I'm Carol Yelverton, and until I see you again, stay hungry for travel.